Dan Lawrence is a DJ on his way to work at the local radio station. He's got a good job, a new button on his audio board to replace that old sticky one, some new old 60s CDs, but one thing Dan doesn't have is a voice.
I am Digital Dan, the DJ with the chip, and yes, I am a real person.
Dan's real all right, but his voice isn't. You see, he speaks through this voice synthesizer. He types it in here and it comes out here.
I let my fingers do the talking.
Digital Dan is the first DJ in the country without a voice.
Okay, now back to some music.
Dan was diagnosed with cancer back in 1993 and had his vocal cords removed, along with some of his dreams.
One day a wind blows, and nothing is ever the same again. This is so true that it hurts.
Dan had to give up his love of acting in the local theater group and any possibility of ever attaining so many of his dreams, including becoming a DJ.
It was like having the rug pulled out from under me. I was really in a state of depression. In the past, I had thought of what it would be like to be a DJ, but it was just a passing fantasy, not something that I thought would ever really happen.
Dan was a carpenter here in town, and after doing some work at the local radio station, the managers there noticed something, that this man who could not speak really had so much to say.
It really doesn't matter how you say what you're going to say. It's what you have inside that counts, what comes from the heart.
So this man, without a voice, actually went on the air, and the response was overwhelming.
He says it the way it is, so.
He doesn't sound like a real disc jockey, does he?
But that's Dan. That's him. That's Dan.
Dan was a combat helicopter pilot in Vietnam. He believes his exposure to Agent Orange caused his cancer, and veterans' rights is now something he campaigns for both on and off the radio.
When I go to the Veterans of Foreign Wars building, I pass the memorial stone out front. I look at it and remember the men that I served with, that are no longer with us. But I am, so I just remember them as they were. When we were done shooting all the rockets, and the M60s were almost empty, we changed music for the flight back to rearm.
Nights in white satin.
His heart comes through in his message, and it's like that with Dan. He reaches out and touches people through the radio, and it really doesn't matter that his voice sounds like a computer.
So Digital Dan has made radio history. Granted, it's not the big time, as the station sits above the local pump house, and the neighbors tend to get a bit restless. But Dan sends a poignant message through his silence that those who listen will hear for the rest of their lives.
I guess the best lesson is when you think you are lost, something happens, and you are found again. I feel that if you swim in a pool of pity, you are bound to drown. So in closing, remember, dare to dream, for the dreams of today are the realities of tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
I wonder what Raleigh Fingers is thinking about.
Well, if I had to give one up, I guess it's nice to give up on the Ciccarone. He's a heck of a ball player. I admire him.
You know, he's a darn good-looking kid, too.
Ciccarone, how many outs are there? Come on, son, wake up here now. Get in the ball game. Your mind's drifting. You're out in la-la land. Know the number of outs, know who the hitter is, know the outfielder's depth, their arm strength, their running speed. You're not in the game.
Well, they do call it fantasy camp. Maureen, I know San Francisco is one of your favorite cities. Mine, too, as each year thousands of people come here to visit. Well, now even more people are on their way, and you're not going to believe what's bringing them here. It's a 4-foot granite stone that mysteriously appeared in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Only some see it as much, much more.
Mahadeva Shambho, Mahadeva Shambho.
It's become a holy place, and it's getting stronger every day.
But I guess in this case, religious symbols are in the eye of the beholder. Now, I don't know if those people know it or not, but they're praying to an old traffic barrier, and it's drawing people here to this park from all over the world. Yep, it's a traffic barrier, all right. You can see them all over the streets of San Francisco. Pretty commonplace, actually. Only this one has been getting a heck of a lot more attention.
Well, it was a traffic barrier. That doesn't matter. It's become a Shiva Lingam. it's become blessed.
You see, its shape mirrors the Shiva Linga, the Hindu symbol of God. And now religious pilgrims from all over the world, an estimated 25,000 so far, have come to pray, chant, toss flowers, pour milk, and perform various religious rituals at the site.
To your external vision, that looks like a traffic barrier, but it is not a traffic barrier. It is Lord Shiva.
I see this Shiva Lingam as a holy site here in the holy city of San Francisco.
You sure it's not a traffic barrier?
How can it be a traffic barrier? How can a traffic barrier accept worship?
God lives there. God lives there.
The traffic barrier?
God lives in the traffic barrier.
Baba Kali Das is a part-time yoga instructor, artist, and claims to be a full-time Hindu priest. He recently learned the city was planning to remove the religious symbol/parking barrier from the park, so he filed a 16-page lawsuit in federal court to stop them.
This can't be allowed. We cannot be allowed to be dominated by bureaucrats.
Baba claims in the document that the parking barrier/religious symbol's appearance is truly a miraculous event of great religious significance, and the city should let it be. Only the city says its miraculous appearance amounts to a couple of guys illegally shoving it off the back of a truck.
It's still a traffic boulder as far as we're concerned.
The president of San Francisco's Parks and Recreation Commission told me the city has its own worries. Aside from this being a classic church and state issue, the former parking barrier is attracting many New Age religious groups whose ceremonies pose a threat.
We've heard that they're burning incense and lighting candles, and obviously from a safety standpoint, we're concerned in preventing any fires or anything out here. And again, I repeat, this is a traffic boulder. It may be this fire hydrant out here or the front door. Someone could come by tomorrow and decide that that's a shrine. But as far as we're concerned, it's a fire hydrant and it's a door.
And I don't mean to belittle anything. Some folks might snicker that there's a bunch of people that pray to a traffic barrier. In your mind, you're not going to lose any sleep over it.
Let me put it this way to you. Beavis and Butthead snicker constantly. They're a reflection of America, constantly snickering.
The city also hinted it has its doubts about Baba Kali Das here, that this religious leader, who may seem to act a bit unorthodox at times, may be just some guy in pajamas out for a little publicity.
He was wearing a leather jacket. I think it's pretty well known that a devout Hindu probably would not be wearing a leather jacket, in so much as those animals are very sacred to the religion.
You can eat meat, you can even smoke pot, and you can still be holy. That's the story. Jai Namaha Shivaya.
Well, before this turned into some kind of holy war, I remembered what one woman said.
It's not a traffic barrier to them. You know, to them it's a symbol of their religion.
So I reevaluated the situation, and with renewed inspiration, I asked the city to give the parking barrier/religious symbol to Baba and let him find a place for it. And you know what? It worked.
I would very much like to make a present of this symbol to you, and we would be happy also to help you move it if you would like to provide an appropriate shrine for it somewhere.
I accept the Shiva Lingam if it's true, and I will then build a temple for all people, all races, all persuasions.
Peace.
It almost doesn't look like a traffic barrier now that I see it up close.
It isn't a traffic barrier.
Basking in my good deed, we said our goodbyes. Now to wait and see if the city makes good on its offer, and if Baba can find a place to put the stone where it will be available to the steady stream of faithful to search for solace in this piece of highway department equipment. So I guess it's safe to say that San Francisco has always been a lightning rod for cultural and spiritual revolution. A city that, when it comes to religious trends, knows no barriers. Except one.
Also ahead, rather different type of problem. You know, for example, what if you had maybe a 15-foot alligator in your hot tub, or maybe, say, something bigger like a 22-foot python under your front porch, or maybe it's just a tiny little pesky thing like a skunk lurking around. That's what you have in New York City.
Yeah. That's not true, is it? No, it's not true.
So who do you call? Well, we called George Ciccarone.
Well, we found a guy for you. There's a fellow who's making a big business, because the thing is, in South Florida, a lot of people have exotic pets, a lot of things crawling around out out there, and they don't die when they get out of the house. They grow bigger and bigger.
Charming.
And they end up coming through your toilet or wherever. They call this fellow, and he specializes in exotic animal removal, and it's really quite bizarre.
And you've met him.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to show our viewers in a little while.
Met him. I went out hunting with him.
You did?
No one gets hurt. We'll say that. But we went out
And you caught a few alligators and a few larger things.
And we capture them and we let them go.
All right.
So it's a nice ending.
George will be back in a few minutes with that story and much more coming back when we come back. Stay with us. I love that. What's that music from?
What's that?
It's scary music to set the scene.
That's good.
Okay.
Say you've got a possum under your porch, or a monkey in your attic, or how about a gator in your garage?
A monkey in your attic?
Not New York City problems, but they are problems in other places of the country.
Like Florida. There is reportedly one alligator for every 14 people, and they're not all in the bayou where they belong. That's where America's #1 critter getter comes in. This guy, George Ciccarone, is here. He went looking at this guy. This guy reminds me of John Goodman in Arachnophobia, right? A little bit?
Yeah, well, he's kind of like a cross between Indiana Jones and Crocodile Dundee, I guess you'd say, because he is really an unusual guy with a very unusual occupation. His name is Todd Hardwick, and he's a man who proudly boasts to have more rabies shots than any dog on his block, and it's the truth. And you're about to see why.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
It may look like the TV show, but these bad boys swim, slither, and spit.
These critters aren't bad. They're just lost.
Todd Hardwick runs a South Florida company called Pesky Critters, specializing in exotic animal removal.
We always get our critter. I got into it to save people from animals and animals from people.
Todd keeps busy around the clock, answering calls from scared homeowners who aren't used to life in this tropical setting.
It literally is a jungle out there.
What is
That is a huge possum.
You still think they're cute and fuzzy?
Let me tell you, I'm still shaking.
Can you see him?
This may be your new record snake.
Did he say snake? With a capital S.
We're face to face with the biggest snake that anybody's ever seen loose in the United States.
I'll let his head go.
Would you believe 22 feet, 250 pounds of python living undetected under some poor lady's house for 10 years? Then there was Big Monk here, on the loose, after making monkeys out of two bad guys who tried to steal him from a Florida home.
Big Monk was so tough that the robbers trying to steal him didn't do anything but liberate him.
So, after 2 long days,
Heading toward 9th Avenue.
and 1 good shot from a tranquilizer rifle,
Oh, you got him.
Todd and authorities had 1 groggy monkey on their hands.
Everybody is handled and captured very humanely. We have their best intentions in mind.
Many of the critters he captures end up here in this sprawling 5-acre sanctuary he built out back of his home. Over 150 in all, like this huge lizard rescued from a movie theater. I guess iguana be in pictures.
This is not an occupation, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of life.
Todd says he's very much concerned with the rights of the critters he captures. So those he doesn't keep, he takes out here to this remote section and releases them back into the wild, where this time, hopefully, they'll stay. So, armed with the latest critter capturing equipment, we checked out a sighting of a 6-foot gator. Go on, I'll catch up.
Hurry up, he's down here. Bring those ropes.
Yeah. Well, luckily, after some beating of the bushes, the gator was gone. See you later. Well, you know the rest.
He may be already down the canal.
Let him stay down there. Then another call. This time we found this misguided gator strolling through a neighborhood. I think it's time to retire from the gator business.
Easy, 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 easy. Have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Quite an adventure. The thing to keep in mind, and the thing I'm really happy about, I'm an animal lover, is no animals are ever injured or hurt. He releases them into the wild, and that's the thing that I really like about this man.
Okay, wait. How about him? Has he ever been hurt?
Not yet, but he really has had more rabies shots than any dogs on his block.
So has he been bit?
Well, he's come close a couple times, but not yet. But he says every day when he goes out, he doesn't know. You know, he might.
Just for the record, you know, we're invading these animals' territory.
Yeah.
They're not invading ours, although they do. The reality is we can't have them hanging around.
Well, that's true.
With
The thing is,
Chihuahua there around there.
There's more and more building going on down there, and these animals have no place to go. So, you know, eventually they're going to show up in your attic.
And then, so how much does it cost to get one of them out of your attic?
Well, the alligators are for free because he's reimbursed by the state, but $75 a removal for another critter.
Why is he reimbursed by the state?
There's an ordinance down there. Basically what happened is this business was born because of all the budget cuts, and the rangers and all those folks don't take care of this anymore. Right. So who are you going to call? You have to call Todd. And he saw this about 16 years ago. He saw this trend coming, so it's come into quite a business for him.
By the way, our crew laughed very hard, as you heard. When I want to go out and be in pictures.
I was very proud of that. I'm very proud to bring that to you.
And Willis especially, get that billowing laugh, our cameraman over there. All right, George.
That's the endorsement.
I'm glad you have no bites on you.
Not yet.
All right, take care.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this. Stay with me. Not yet, let me see.
I got a mosquito bite.
Oh, well, mosquito in Florida, you gotta have mosquitoes, right?
But we close this morning with the great pumpkin toss. Our GMA Sunday contributor, George Ciccarone, is in Lewis, Delaware, where the entire town is on an unofficial kind of flying pumpkin alert this weekend.
Pumpkin alert holiday.
All right, George, what do you got there?
Well, this is the 13th festival, I believe, right? 12th. I'm sorry. See, I messed up right off the bat. Well, I don't know my pumpkin etiquette here, but I'm here with Amy Simpson, and Amy is the event coordinator. Amy, you know, I'm going to speak for the people back in New York in the studio. Why? Why did they do this?
Well, about 12 years ago, there were 3 men arguing in a local blacksmith shop over who can throw an anvil at the farthest. And then it turned into pumpkins, and pumpkin chunkin was created. And we took it over as the Roadhouse Steak Joint 3 years ago for local charities to raise money for them.
And I mean, was there any alcohol involved with the creation of this, or it all happened? It happened like spontaneous combustion, or what?
I'm sure there was some alcohol involved.
Okay. Anyway, the guys, we're getting ready to fire this thing off in just a few seconds here as they're feverishly working, loading pumpkins. Anyway, we were here yesterday as the event kicked off for the first day, and as you're about to see, it was a proud day when pumpkins fly. You say now that Halloween's over and you don't know what to do with all those pumpkins? Well, you've come to the right place. It's called Pumpkin Chunkin', and this year's 17 chunkies, along with their chunkors, converged on the small town of Lewis, Delaware, toting pumpkin-throwing contraptions made from everything from Tupperware to Mom's corset.
It's an honest, non-blood sport.
Well, most of the time. What happened?
It broke.
Why do people do this?
Why? Because it's fun.
There was the kiddie category. Child's play. Get a load of these big guns. On a good day, some of these 80-foot barrels can propel a pumpkin more than half a mile.
Basic air cannon. It's got a big air tank on it. Just fill it up with air, load the pumpkin, push the button, and the pumpkin goes out the end of the barrel.
It comes out all right at speeds up to 600 miles an hour. Some of these things are downright scary, using thousands of pounds of compressed air. And technical? Oh my.
NASA? They're not here, are they?
The rules are simple. The pumpkins have to weigh between 8 to 10 pounds. They must leave the device intact, and above all... How's it go? Good Lord, don't let anything get hit by our gourds. A good time, yes, but there's magic in those big barrels. Not only are they expected to raise about $35,000 for charity, but this is the only place, they say, where you can turn a pumpkin into squash.
Whoa, that was scary.
Okay, we're gassing up the Universal Soldier. We're ready to go to battle here, right, guys? How much pressure's in this, Trey?
175 now.
All right, think we can break the record?
Oh, yeah, it's easy.
All right, why don't you guys count us down to 5 and we'll let it go, okay? Ready? Everybody?
Spanning the globe to bring you the
5, 4, 3, 2.
Be careful, George.
Oh!
Can we follow that? Where is it?
Where is it?
Where'd it go, George?
I think you were disqualified.
It's a dud.
Anyway, but keep in mind, it really is a good time, and they're raising a lot of money for charity. And well, what can I say?
We'll be able to find that pumpkin sort of in Baltimore or something.
I'll bring some back. We could swing this around and wing you guys as you leave the studio.
Okay.
You know?
Did it make it out of there, George?
I think it's shredded in mid-flight. This was a bogus ball.
Well, let me just say something. We are trying. We have been experimenting ourselves. I'm not going to do it in front of Willa, but we have our own pumpkin launcher here. So,
okay.
All right, George. Good luck out there.
Thank
You be
you.
careful.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
All right, Steve Fox was telling us that he did the story a few years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago for the show. And I think the answer to why they do it is because they can.
Because they can? And you heard the thing about alcohol being involved. Doesn't surprise you?
That's why you wanted to do it here.
I do want to do it.
You thought you could get away with that.
I bet the fact that people like George and Steve go down.
If your child made a final wish before he died, you'd probably stop at nothing to make that wish come true, even if dozens of people told you it was impossible. That, in fact, is exactly how David Saltzman's parents responded when he made his last request, and George Ciccarone has their really moving story of their efforts to make it happen.
Well, you know, this is the time of year where parents, as you well know, are scrambling to make those last-minute gifts and fulfill dreams. But for Barbara and Joe Saltzman, the gift that they're busy giving away this year began with a wish their youngest son made just before he died.
What I loved most about David was his laugh, his smile, and his hugs. They were just warm and wonderful.
David Saltzman always wanted to be a writer, a cartoonist.
He also hopes to start a career as an author and illustrator of children's books.
But David never had that chance. 8 months after his college graduation, David died of Hodgkin's disease. But while battling the cancer, he was inspired to write a touching children's story of a jester who set out to find laughter and happiness, and ironically found it hiding within the heart of a sick child.
Sometimes I feel like crying too, the jester whispered in her ear. We would not let the book die with David. We promised him that the book would be published and that it would be given free to children who most needed it, children who were diagnosed with cancer and had other special needs, who really needed to find their smiles.
After his death, his parents set out to fulfill their promises. Told by publishers it was too long and too costly to reproduce, they mortgaged their home and published the book themselves. 2 years after losing David, his book, The Jester Has Lost His Jingle, was finally published, true to their son's vision. But that's not the end of the story. No, not by a long shot. Something happened then that no one really expected. Apparently, David's words of hope and inspiration struck a tender nerve with America, and his book became a huge hit.
They looked far and wide. They looked everywhere that laughter might hide.
The book is now in about 2,000 schools and in its 5th printing with 300,000 copies in circulation. It also made several bestseller lists and has earned praise from educators who say its spirit and message hits home.
That there's laughter inside everybody and that you just need to let it out and let it flow.
You'll have an opportunity to make a difference, to give a message to the world. I know it sounds very grandiose, but that's what we're striving to do with our children.
When The Jester Has Lost His Jingle posted to the New York Times bestseller list, it had posted on David's birthday. We always felt there was some very special meaning in that.
You saved the day!
And true to their second promise, Barbara visits children's hospitals about twice a month to read her son's witty words of hope and hand out copies of the book. On this day, she was joined by baseball great Rod Carew, who knows all too well what it's like to search for laughter. He too lost his 18-year-old daughter Michelle to cancer.
With sadness, there's always happiness at the end of the rainbow.
We should all remember that.
Oh yes, I think we should. And that's what this story, I think, is all about.
Sometimes you just, need to look anywhere you can for something to smile about, and when you do, you hold on to it.
Barbara Saltzman finds comfort in knowing that David found strength within the whimsical character he created, and knows his words will live on to teach, enrich, and touch the hearts of children everywhere.
I turn my sadness upside down and stand it on its head.
When I get sad or lonesome, or when I get depressed, that's when I sing my loudest and dance my very best. That passage, to me, sums up what David was all about. This is a book you'll be reading to your grandchildren, and it's something that's going to last forever.
Now, keep in mind, no one is getting rich off this book quite yet. David's family is still about a couple $100,000 in debt, but they say at this point it really doesn't matter because they've already gotten their payback because literary scholars around the country are saying that this book is destined eventually to become a children's classic, and they're very proud.
Oh, what a great story, especially this time of year, if I can use that cliche.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because their quest is exactly the quest of the jester, you know, to find the positive, to find meaning in
And it
life.
wasn't that easy because, as we said, they went to various publishers, which is what they didn't know anything about publishing, and they all came up with reasons. They wanted to make it black and white. They wanted to take the turn it into prose, take the rhyme out of it because they said it wasn't selling, but they wanted to be true to their son's vision, and they believed in it. And they're having the last laugh, and they're hoping David is looking down and smiling with them.
I'm sure he is. I love this book, and let me just read the last passage to you out of it. So when you're feeling lonely or sad or blue, remember where laughter's hiding. It's hiding inside of you. And this was written by a 23-year-old who knew he was dying.
I know.
It's so sad and so moving.
Yes.
George, great story.
Thank you.
Great story.
Dan Lawrence is a DJ on his way to work at the local radio station. He's got a good job, a new button on his audio board to replace that old sticky one, some new old 60s CDs, but one thing Dan doesn't have is a voice.
I am Digital Dan, the DJ with the chip, and yes, I am a real person.
Dan's real all right, but his voice isn't. You see, he's